Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the Newman Crows Landing Unified School District, November 8th, 2021 board meeting. We would like to have the senior athletes. They're going to do our flag salute. May I have you come up? Come on up.
You just have to stand.
Before I start, I'd like to thank the senior athletes and all the athletes that are at our STIMBA for bringing back the warrior. Thank you. Okay. Report out of action taken in closed session. Fact-finding hearing conducted by administrative review in case number 21-22/01. Motion by board member Mr. Wallace and seconded by board member Mrs. Hurst. It is moved that the Board of Education find there is cause to expel student number 23979 from all schools in the district for violation of education code, and it was passed by a 5-0 decision. Public communication agenda and non-agenda items. Any person wishing to comment on agenda and non-agenda items may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name. It would be appreciated if you would limit your comments to 3 minutes. California law prohibits the school board from taking action on any matter which is not on the posted agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the board. Per board policy BB 9323, individual speakers may be allowed 3 minutes to address the board on each agenda or non-agenda item. The board may limit the total time for public input on each item to 20 minutes. With board consent, the president may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation depending on the topic and the number of persons wishing to be heard. The president may take a poll of speakers for or against a particular issue and may ask that additional persons speak only if they have something new to add. Is there anyone that would like to speak to the board? May I ask you to say your name, please? That's okay.
So I attended last board meeting. Just kind of see everything. As you guys probably are well aware, COVID is here and well. I just like to address, because I feel like maybe you guys are discussing it, but it's not being relayed to the public. And since the beginning with COVID, I feel like as parents, we've been sitting and it's just been thrown on us, and this is what we have to do, and this is what we have to do. And we have not been given any leeway ahead of time so that if we weren't in agreeing with it, we could go an alternative route. So I would strongly appreciate if you guys could start addressing what could be a possible mandate and be well aware. I hope you guys are not naive to think that you will be losing students if you follow through. I don't want to say that you guys don't have the best interest of the students at hand, but at the moment, as a mom, as a parent, it's starting to feel like you guys are more worried about lining your pockets and going with the mandates that are required or asked than really fully what's best for the children. As a parent, it's been hard watching my daughter struggle. It's been hard, and I'm not saying that it's not difficult as educators, as staff. It's been difficult for everybody, but imagine the struggles that you guys are feeling and a child having to deal and process.
and not really knowing how to deal and process. So with the mandates, I've already have had to deal with my daughter's mental health. If you're asking me to choose and have to choose between her mental health and have some kind of routine with school and her medical health, I'm going to put up a fight. Whether I stand alone or I have a relay of parents behind me, I'm willing to stand my guard and put something forward. So I don't want to have a fight. I would like to be able to be on board and kind of address the possibilities if that does come down to a mandate, that we could all work together and figure something out for parents that are not okay, religious, medical, whatever the reason be, that are not okay with the mandate. So I would just like to open the floor on having a discussion started so that something can kind of be laid in path. I know things can change, and I'm not saying like this is a path and we have to follow through, but I just want a discussion started so that as it gets here, we're prepared to see where we need to go.
Thank you. Okay. We keep up with state regulations. We continually follow the rules that we are bound by law to do. And Mr. Posey, would you like to speak to that?
Actually have it on my list to talk about in my superintendent's report, but if the president would like me to address that now, I'll be happy to.
Please.
Okay, so I actually attended a training on I assume when the governor's mandate, we're discussing the vaccination mandates. And I attended a training on that earlier this week. First of all, there is no mandate. It's the governor has announced he will be doing a mandate, but we don't to this date have a mandate. And one of the interesting pieces about that is a governor's mandate cannot override personal exemption. So if the governor does a mandate requiring all ages 5 to 12 to get vaccinated, the personal exemption will always still be in effect, which means that a parent can simply fill out a personal exemption form saying they wish not to do the vaccinations, and that's the end of that story. Now, I do want to caution, I'm sorry I didn't catch your name, but I do want to caution that that is on a governor's mandate. If there's legislation action that puts the vaccinations in effect, that can remove the personal exemption. So if the state legislatures were to go and pass a new law requiring a vaccination, then the personal exemptions would go away. You couldn't do a personal exemption. But just with Newsom mandating the vaccinations be in play for all students, any parent, and we would have forms available at every school, could come in and fill out a form saying they wish to be personally exempt from the vaccination mandate. And that's that. That power lies still in the parental hands. And that's always the case in California. Governor can't mandate out of the parental exemption.
My thing is, if it does get to
Willing to lose students and have them go to charter because of that legislative aspect put in play.
We currently do have an alternative, even under the mask mandate, if you, the independent study program is available for all students upon parent request. That came about in August, and each parent got a notification of that at the beginning of your packet that if they wish to have independent study, that they could do that. If it got to legislative action, that would be the in-district option, would be the independent study. And when, we were given about 6 weeks to put that program together, and Ms. Bencourt did an incredible job doing that, but we're constantly looking about how to make that program better for that exact reason.
Okay.
But understand that legislative action, that's not a quick action. That would take some time because it would have to go through the Senate and the Assembly, and probably more local accountability for each vote because they're accountable to the electorate. I would recommend the energies against that legislative action be sent towards the state legislatures who would be voting on that. Be sure to contact them and let them know your position.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. Okay. Public communication, agenda and non-agenda items. Any person wishing to comment on agenda and non-agenda items may do so. Please step to the podium and state your name. I already did that. Okay, may I have an approval of a motion to approve the agenda? A second? All in favor? Opposed? It passes 5-0. Information discussion items, student representative report. Alexa.
So good evening, everyone. And before we start, I just want to recognize all the senior audience here that's here for their government awareness project. Thank you for coming. I hope you learn a lot. And if you have any questions at all, please don't hesitate to speak to the board members or I. If you didn't know already, I am your board representative. So if you have any concerns about our school, I am here to help with that. So Oristimba. In the span of a month, there have been significant occasions at Oristimba. We've had 3 big games concerning our football team. First, homecoming against Denair, which we won. Then there is the 75th rivalry game against Gustine, which Oristimba won again. I told you we'd get the chief back. I was right. Most recently, varsity's playoff against Linden, who although did not win, did a great job the entire season. We are very proud of our players. The spirit at all these games is just overwhelmingly great. The zoo did a great job at promoting spirit and encouraging students to come out and be part of the fun. And for the rivalry game, we were able to receive our alumni who contributed to the audience's ecstaticness. The cheerleaders and the band did a great job with their performance, especially at their halftime shows at the rivalry game. There was also a huge streak that was broken since the band got to perform in their first away game in years at the playoffs. It was really exciting to hear the music and have another audience supporting our team's away game. And all this amazing sense of unity was filmed by KCRA, a news station who chose to capture the long-standing rivalry between Oristimba and Gustine, which if anybody is interested in seeing their coverage is online on their website. And then all these events have held a great impact for all grades alike at Oristimba. For instance, float building for the homecoming game was very exciting and an invigorating time. Classes got together and worked to try and make the most attractive float. It was really interesting to see how people who've known each other from afar since kindergarten were finally having full conversations on how big they wanted Mr. Monopoly's mustache to be or what colors they wanted to be painted on the backboard. Our students have been creating fundraisers, making new clubs, and overall being involved in the extracurriculars our school has to offer. GSA and STEM Club are hosting meetings. HYLC made an altar for Dia de los Muertos. The Rotary Club did Pennies for Polio, which the freshmen won. The seniors following behind, and it's not really sitting well. And the NAMI Club, which our advisor, Ms. Clark in the back over there, is doing a great job at managing, did their Out of Darkness walk in Modesto and have been drawing positive chalk art all around Oristimba to raise awareness for suicide prevention and motivating students to take care of their mental health. With all these events going on, seniors have been bustling and working hard on their college applications and overall life after high school, building upon their foundations to pursue their careers and be successful. Our counselors have done a great job at having workshops and meetings for students to understand this process and its importance. Overall, Oristimba has been very busy, and with winter sports and due dates coming along, it would undoubtedly stay as the energetic school we all know it to be. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to reporting back on our campus life in the next meeting.
Alexia, excellent. Are there any questions from any board members? Thank you. You keep us well informed. Okay, here we go. Citizens Oversight Committee Annual Report. Do we have one speak?
In your board backup, there's a copy of the annual report. This is going to be the final annual report for Measure P, as the ending balance will merge in with future Measure X funds. So this in your packet, there's an overview of all of the projects that were funded through Measure P. We did quite a few large projects, including the Herb Barrington Library and the new YOLO classroom wing. So the breakdown of everything that was done is summarized. And then we have some pictures for you of the new YOLO classroom building wing. And then some work that we hope to do in the future with the tennis courts, and showing the condition of those and how those need to be repaired. So we ended up with about $1.2 million remaining, and then those funds will be joined in with the Measure X funds when those bonds are issued. We have a new oversight committee for Measure X, and they will take over. Does anyone have any questions?
Are there any questions? No. It was a very thorough report. Thank you. Educator Effectiveness Block Grant Expenditure Plan.
Mrs. Yeah, good evening. Mrs. Mendoza and I will tag team as needed. It's just informational tonight, though it'll be up for approval at the next board meeting. We've received about a little over $800,000 and to spend through 2024. And the focus is professional development for teachers, administrators, and classified staff that work with students. So our instructional aides. And you can see we've listed on the plan, which is in your backup. We're going to continue some of the professional development that we've started and then add a few other things as we move through those next few years. So if you have any questions about the budget or the actions, just feel free to ask. And we'll keep you posted on the activities in the PD as we go through the years.
And this will come up for a vote for adoption in December.
For December. Thank you.
I just wanted to make the comment that for those of you who are in the audience and we're talking about these reports and you don't have them in front of you, you can go on our website and they're right there. You can, anything, if you're wondering about it, you just look there. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bassar. Okay. Data report, social emotional learning and iReady update. Mrs. Betancourt?
Yes, we'll start with the social emotional. I think Edward's going to pull that up. It's not that one, Edward.
Yeah.
While he's looking for that for the students in the room, we up here really like signing your papers, so you don't have to go to a teacher. We love doing that. And if you bring us questions about what you saw tonight, it's definitely worth something extra. If there's something you see and you're not sure about, ask us when you get done.
He has
Paper signed, and we love answering questions.
He has it.
Technology. Here we go.
I actually just finished a grading and the value of learning in the assignment. Extras.
There we go.
Yep, thank you. So this year, as part of our data collection, we had each of our sites do a screener or a survey to determine where we're at baseline for our students' social emotional health and what kind of support we may need to offer. Edward. I told you it never works for me. It's been a district focus, and I think I'm actually excited to bring to you some of what's been going on. We've invested a lot in people, 3 elementary counselors, a counselor at YOLO. We have 3 learning directors at OHS. We have 3 mental health clinicians in this small district, which I think is amazing. 1 is shared by the elementary, 1 full-time mental health clinician at YOLO, and a full-time mental health clinician at OHS. So with that investment, we need accountability. And that's what we're here to share with you is what we're doing with our support staff. The elementary gave us screener. It's called an SEL screener, and it's based on indicators of need. So our elementary did something a little bit different than our secondaries. It's a little bit difficult to do this type of screener at the secondary level, but we're looking at ways to tweak it down the road, maybe next year for all sites. So we're looking at these different indicators for our students. And then the teachers complete this 3 times a year. Now the students don't complete this screener, the teachers do. Edward, could you click on the SEL screener? It's a live link. Okay, let's start with iReady and then we'll go back to social emotional. So we gave our iReady diagnostic as a district. The last day, the window closed on Friday, and we had actionable data by today. We actually could have had it over the weekend, but we worked on it over the weekend and sometime today. So the first slide you're seeing here is the district SBAC predictor. This is in English language arts. So if you're looking at this, the green with the diagonal lines, those students are above grade level. They're about mid or above grade level. The students in just the solid green, those students are early on in the grade level, which is what we would expect at this time in the year. The yellow students are approximately 1 grade level below. The solid red is 2 grade levels below. And then the diagonal red is 3 or more grade levels below. So this is district-wide. So you can see from K to 12 where our students fell in English language arts. This is district-wide, same indicators for math. So this is our first diagnostic. This is baseline data. And what we're looking for is growth through each diagnostic. So diagnostic 1 to diagnostic 2, we need to see growth. From diagnostic 2 to diagnostic 3, we need to see growth. This is a predictor. So if our students were to take the SBAC assessment today, there's a high correlation between performance on iReady diagnostic and SBAC. If they were to take the SBAC today, our results would be very similar to this. English language arts, this is what the high school looks like. We're following a pathway here, and Mr. Posey is going to give you some data in just a minute. We're following a pathway for the high school, all grades. This is what English language arts looks like.
So I'm going to jump in on that, Ms. Betancourt. So it's important to note that this is as they are today. So when you look at what you think is a relatively low number at 7% above grade level, that means 7% of, let's suppose that was, this is for all schools, but let's suppose that was just for 11th grade. That means 11th graders have already mastered the 11th grade curriculum, which they're in the process of learning. So you wouldn't expect a big number at or above grade level, because that's testing things that have not yet been instructed. The solid green is early grade level, which is about where we are in November. We should be about early grade level. So we knew that there was certainly some gaps to close because of distance learning. And the goal generally is to move everything from yellow to green to shaded green, or whatever you want to call that black green crisscross thing, into the METs or exceeded standards. So that would be the 7, 12, and 20. That's really what you would expect to see. And then, of course, the next big goal is to reduce the amount that are 3 or more grade levels behind, which is at 51%. So one is through what we call tier 1 instruction, which would be in classroom learning, and the other would be through targeted intervention and catching kids up.
I'm going to let you explain the growth map, the model.
So one of the powers of the iReady diagnostics is, like Ms. Betancourt said, we literally finished this on Friday and we have the data today. There is a correlation that is beyond publishable between how our students do on the iReady diagnostics and how they perform on the state test, the SBAC. It's virtually the same, plus or minus a couple points. So what this chart shows is, as of today, district-wide, if we took the SBAC today, 23% of our students would be met or exceeded standards based on their performance district-wide. This is only looking at students who are in the grade levels that would take the SBAC. Okay, so it's not looking at 9th and 10th graders and the 11th grade takes it. So it's looking specifically at those who would take it. And then the next line shows what you would expect with normal growth the rest of the year. So if we did no interventions and just taught the course, you'd expect to see us to get to about 46% of it meets and exceeds standards. As I put the 2018 comparison up there, because that's the last real assessment we have. It's kind of sad that we're a few weeks from 2022, but because of COVID, that's just reality. So we are looking for a slight growth. Now, we personally will take that 46 number and kind of make that our challenge number. We want that to be higher because that means we actually intervened on kids we wouldn't expect to be met or exceeded, and we exceeded expectations. So 46, keep that number in mind. We'll keep reminding you throughout the year. Once we get the SBAC done and we see those results sometime in 2024, then we'll be able to see, did we meet that target? And it's really the power of iReady in the predictor. There's tons of powers you'll see later in this presentation. But the first power is that we can really take an assessment on Friday and have an SBAC predictor. They say 24 hours because they do a little bit of calculation in there on Monday morning. And we don't have to wait for months to go by for the data to become stale before we actually start acting on that data. It is actionable data. So for 2 weeks, the students moaned and groaned. Here's some sound effects, moans and groans, about doing the iReady. But this is why we do it, because we can take these numbers and immediately put action into place on it. This is the math. If we were to give them the final test today, we expect about 5% to meet or exceed. Not surprising. I think when you don't use math in an instructional setting over the course of 2 years, like we do in-person learning, I would suspect skills get lost, and the data supports that. 18% is our expected number by the end of the year for meets exceeds district-wide. And we are down a bit from the 2018 results. So again, that'll be our challenge. We'll call our challenge number at 18%.
And I think what Mr. Posey said is really important. That's without intervention, just kids showing up every day and teachers teaching every day.
Yeah, tier one, the
Tier
normal
one.
classroom instruction.
And all of our sites are planning interventions, especially in math. So we're hoping that also supports student growth. This is what one class, I think one of the things about iReady, especially at the secondary level where you are teaching multiple classes, your English 9, you're teaching 3 different periods of English 9. Not every class is going to look the same. So this is one English 9 period. And then if you compare it to another English 9 period, you can see that there's a difference. Those kids need to be taught differently. They need to have intervention. Sorry, let me go
The other way.
I know, sorry.
So if we look at these really quick, you'll see the first one, go back one more. You'll see the first one, the vocabulary, comprehension of literature, and comprehension of informational text in the second class. It's pretty good. It's pretty strong. If you look at the yellows over, that's saying that of that grade level, most kids are at grade level in 9th grade in that classroom on comprehending literature, which would be your language arts class, or on informational comprehension of text, which would be your science and your history classes, which use that skill. Now, if you go forward one more, same teacher, but a different period, different group of kids, this teacher might now know to teach that second class a little differently, because you see what happened to those comp lit and that confirmational of informational technology, the last 2 bars on that. You're walking into a room where you know about 50% of your kids need some support to participate at grade level. And this is the information that's now available at the fingertips, at a click of a button with teachers, so they can know exactly what the makeup holistically of their class is when they go to say, okay, you know, I'm probably more apt to turn these kids over to independent practice, where the other, maybe more small group instruction might be the better strategy. That's the word I was looking for in successfully teaching those children.
And we're in the middle of professional development right now, meeting with the iReady reps on data. So the high school special ed team met with a rep today. We had 4th and 5th graders meeting with a data rep going over their data today. And we had K1, kindergarten.
K1,
Yeah, TK and kindergarten met with a rep and went over their data today. And we have more scheduled for tomorrow. YOLO will be working on theirs a little bit later this month, but we should, over the next 2 days, all the elementaries and the high school will have had professional development on how to review this data and how to take action with this data.
I think
So-
the next one. So this goes, go ahead.
So in a way, it's almost like, and it sounds kind of crazy, like a crystal ball. Like if you look at children that are in 3rd and 4th grade now, and they're having, say, problems with mathematical word problems, you can then work on that so that by the time, say in 2 years, should see a big increase. Will the students get to see how they did?
I think a lot of that was the discussion today. A lot of the teachers were talking about goal setting with their students and talking to them about where they're at and where they would like to see them, within the next, by the next diagnostic. I think it's really important that kids know where they're at right now and where they need to be. So setting those milestones for them, I think would be, a lot of teachers were talking about. I went to the workshop. I went to the 4-5. I think Mr. Posey went to the kindergarten one.
Not only do they see their results, but the program that at the student level will design learning activities to focus on fun learning activities, to focus on areas of the individual students' weaknesses. So if it knows that the student needs help with informational text or phonics awareness, it will design, they look like games,
Yeah.
oftentimes entertaining. And the student, if they can get them 40 minutes a week per subject to play these games and carve out that time inside the instructional time, they would expect to exceed expected result growth in a year. So it's really intervening and giving individualized instruction to each student.
So a lot of times you'll see that a child can mathematically do the calculations, but then if they have to go take the reading and the content from that reading, they don't apply it. And sometimes as a student, you don't know that. When I did quadratic equations, they made no sense.
I was
And
speaking with a principal today, and that's exactly what he said. He said our math kids, our reading for informational text is a weak area in our district right now, and it's definitely affecting math scores.
Right.
So that is something he plans on working on as they move forward this year with this data.
Thank
What-
you.
Sorry. You have another question. What the slide here shows you is what a teacher could see with 3 of the classes. So in this case, it's a World Civ, a teacher that teaches World Civ for 3 sections. And you could see really highlighting the differences from period 1, period, I don't know if it's 1, 2, and 3, let's say it is, period 1, period 2, and period 3. And you can see that, okay, one has an overall grade level better than another, might change the way I instruct. But wait, there's more. If you click on a class, particular class, now where you see the black lines, those are student names. I redacted them in fear of giving away someone's private information. But this actually goes student by student on the roster. And what you see in those columns is phonic awareness. High frequency words,
Phonemic awareness.
phonic awareness and phonics, vocabulary, academic vocabulary, literature comprehension, and informational text comprehension. So now when I look at my roster as a teacher, I could go, okay, if I gave a 10th grade reading to my class and say, have at it, I can really anticipate 5 students being able to handle that assignment without some type of intervention. And what am I doing for the rest of the roster? And that's where the brilliance of this program comes in. Is just with a quick look, I can say, I know that I need to do small group instructions like we're really good at doing in the district, and for the students that are lacking those skills, or maybe I need to give them an 8th grade reading of the same skill to build that skill up. So it really does, it's, not fixed plate menu or education, if I'm real. You can order a la carte and get the I'm hungry, yeah, and get the exact education you need.
And the program also has scaffolding support. They showed us today as scaffolding supports for teachers who you have to scaffold intervention, provide scaffolding for literature or informational text. It has some real specific things teachers can do to support that.
I really appreciate this kind of instant assessment for the teachers, because I wish I would have had this, but because that's the thing, you're always wanting to make certain. And so in that assessment that comes as quickly is going to be nice.
And teachers had good questions today. They were engaged and really asking good questions about what to do with their data next at the workshop. This is a student profile. So it goes all the way down to an individual student level. And I took 2 different completely students. So on the left, you see student 1, that student is at grade level and actually maybe a little bit above where they need to be right now. And they have what they call a stretch band. So we want them to grow, and then we want them to grow a little bit more if they can. So we set basically a goal for them to reach the top of that green, if you want to make it, easy way to say it right now. If you look at the second student, that student is not yet at grade level. They're approaching grade level. And we want them to meet that green line by the time their growth is going to be a little bit different than the other students' growth. So I always explain it as they're climbing a mountain. One is a really steep mountain and one is just a small rolling hill. So the one on the left has a little hill to climb. The one on the right has a much steeper mountain to climb. So we got to intervene with that student on the right. We've got to do something in addition to tier 1 or classroom instruction for that student on the right. And that's where we have to make those decisions about what does that look like at elementary, what does that look like at YOLO, and what does that look like at the high school? Because we can't say we can't do that in secondary. That's not an option anymore. We have to figure out how to do that in secondary. I think that's our last one. Anything you want to add, Mr. Posey?
any questions or?
I wish I had that when I was teaching. Not only for I would like to take it because not everybody is perfect in everything. So if you know that you're not, I know of people that are word readers. They know the words, but they really don't know how to phonetically sound them out. So they just kind of say any word to put it in. And it's nice to know this. I mean, just as a person. I should take the math one.
Shoot, no, I took the test and it was kind of humbling because there's a lot of math I remember I forgot. And I remembered I forgot it. I already knew that at one time, but I don't anymore.
Yeah. Yes.
And what I was going to say to the audience, and at least for those of you who are students, you may have been wondering, why are we taking these tests? What's the purpose of this? Well, that's what hopefully you can see here tonight. The idea is that it gives the information to the teacher that tells he or she what level you're at, so that they hopefully can help you by designing their lessons a little more individual for you as a student, so that you benefit as well as somebody else in the class. And so when you get these tests, I think sometimes you might think, well, this is a waste of my time. I mean, it's not going to teach me anything. No, it may teach you something, but in addition, it's going to give the teacher information so that they can design lessons that hopefully will help you in your studies.
I don't know why it's not.
Before you move on, I just am really excited to see
It's ready?
that we finally got this data that frankly I've been asking for several years, and really excited to see that we're going to be able to come back. I'm seeing things. We sit there and we wait for state data, and our students have already been assigned to a new classroom. Well, I'm looking at this and seeing, we have support classes. And for a long time, we've seen support classes, and we'll see a student struggling with a D in their math class or their English class and getting an A in support. And I'm like, well, why didn't the grade come up? We're kind of shortchanging that student. So I think this is just really wonderful that we're going to be able to tighten that up. I think it's also looking at having sat here for the past several years, we've put all of our emphasis on learning reading. And we see some of that in some of these reports, but we also don't see that in some of the reports. And I know that everybody came to work and worked hard, but I think that there's some great reflection that y'all have a chance to do and come back with, well, we've been working on academic vocabulary for more than 5 years. I was excited to see the kids that came in with academic vocabulary starting in 2nd and 3rd grade are now at YOLO in the high school. And some of those, I saw lots of big green lines and consistent places that suggested we'd gotten that done for them. But when we see consistent holes, it also suggests, fortunately, I think this is a really great time in that we have some money available we don't normally have. We're trying to fix COVID. Well, we can fix whatever else needs to be fixed with those same COVID money. So I'm just thrilled and excited to see you guys doing this. And I know it was a lot of work to bring something brand new in and get started with it, for the students, for the teachers, for the administrators. And thank you, everybody, for this hard work. I really think it's something that can pay off.
And I appreciate those comments, and you're spot on. And I do want to thank Mrs. Betancourt, because even I think Saturday I got an email from her about the slide presentation. I think Sunday I got an email from her. It's not like you can take a break. And you're absolutely right, Ms. Wallace. It allows us to schedule kids accordingly. It also, because we get the data so quick, we can develop programs over the summer. And I know, that when we plan, a lot of times it's like, well, what are we planning? That the state data is not back yet. I don't know. When I did my master's project paper, it didn't get the results I thought it would. And I learned the lesson of, after 3 years, to cut the funding to that particular project and go a different route because it wasn't getting the results. And so even though the project didn't get the results I thought, it saved spinning wheels. It saved us continually doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results and going, look, that didn't get us the results we wanted. Figure out why, or find something else. And the sooner those data can come in that we can do that, we can be more productive and more efficient with our resources.
Well, and I just like,
Appreciate those comments.
I just like to edit. I appreciate the comments also. And I think what I find this year is there's definitely a cabinet PLC that's focused on data. And it helps when the data will drive our budget, the data will drive our professional development, the data will drive our resources, our curriculum, our supplemental materials. And I think it's a group effort, and it's been nice this year to have, have those discussions as a district level team. So I appreciate that with the team that we're working with here this year.
Also, part of this, you have been without in-classroom teaching for approximately 18 months, maybe more. We're going to see what that in-classroom is going to do too. I mean, if it's going to work even better, and I think it will,
Mhm.
just because you have one-on-one, you can ask a question instead of pushing a button like I'm doing and trying to get the information. You have a body there that if you don't know, you can say, and never, ever feel that you can't ask your teacher.
Well, if they won the chief, they can do this too.
Oh, yeah, do that.
I'm sure of it.
Yes.
I'm going to go back to the social emotional data. I apologize for that. Yeah, and I'm from Gustine, by the way.
I think this is Corey just announced iReady Rivalry Week.
Yeah.
Justine, I think that's
The social emotional data, I apologize for the glitch earlier, but I'm actually really excited about this too. Along with academic support, our students need support with their social emotional health. A lot has gone on the last few years, and we want to make sure that we're supporting it. As a board, you've approved a lot of investment into people, and we kind of talked a little bit about that. These were the areas that elementary is looking at. Internalizing behaviors are things that happen like feeling shy or feeling sad. The externalizing behaviors that they were looking at are bullying, maybe stealing, fighting. Those are external behaviors. So at the elementary, we looked at, are they what kind of behaviors? Are they internalizing a lot? Are they externalizing a lot? What does that look like? So the teachers take a screener 3 times a year, and it's not going to open up. Not sure why, we can't figure it out, but I'll kind of explain it. You'll see the data, so you'll see where it comes from. And they basically, after the kids have been in school 30 days, the elementary teachers all get together in a staff meeting. They're given the screener, and they have to, it's like your gut instinct right away. And it's on a scale of 0, never happens, all the way up to 4, all the time kind of thing. They then take that screener and they have data. They take that data, and each elementary site has a team that works together on reviewing that data. It includes their counselor, mental health clinician, principal. I'm sure all the sites have included teachers also. So they take that data, they review it, and then they make determinations about what they need at their site to support student social emotional health. So it could be individual counseling. It could be classroom presentations. It could be the counselors coming into a second cup of coffee and giving some sort of a presentation because they're seeing things in the survey or the screener that warrants bringing parents in for a parent night. So what each site went in and put their data in here. This is our baseline data, the first of the year. I believe they gave it in late September after the kids had been in school for a while, and the teachers had a feel for their behaviors. And you can see the red, and the 2 separate are, one is internalized behavior. So you'll see that's the emotionally flat, the shy, withdrawn, sad, depressed, anxious. And then the externalizing behavior, that's more like the fighting, the low academics, behaviors that are manifest itself, but we can see them. And across the board, if you look at the charts at the top, the target is in any school system, when you're looking at a tiered response model, 80% of the kids are going to be pretty much just fine with what's going on in the classroom every day. So the teacher helping them get over some of their anxiety or their issues. 15% of the kids are going to need a little bit more help. Maybe they're going to need to see the counselor or have a check-in with an adult. I'll use anxiety as an example. So they're a little bit more anxious. And what a teacher can do in a classroom isn't gonna support them enough. So we now maybe refer them to a counselor, and the counselor's helping that kid work through that anxiety. About 5% are going to need to be referred to the next level, which would be our mental health clinician, where they need longer term support and therapy, and maybe the family needs support with how to deal with maybe severe anxiety in a student. So fortunately, Newman has someone to address all those tiers of support. Starting this year, we have plenty of support for that. So you can look though, at Barrington, they're not far off of their target. So now they're dressed, their target looks good. So they're going to take what their areas, their team decided their areas were that they felt they needed to address. Maybe the kids being shy and withdrawn and anxious. We're seeing a lot of students and parents talk to us about anxiety at the site. And they're going to address that through counseling, presentations, going into classrooms. So now they have a plan that they develop around this data. Same for each site. I'm not going to go over this, but you can kind of see each site has very similar data. So if we were to gather this in a district level chart, you would see very similar data at every site. Low academics was high in every area, and low academics leads sometimes for kids to be anxious or withdrawn. And then finally, Benita. So the sites take this data and now they develop a plan, and then they will give this screener 2 more times, mid-year and then at the end of the year. And we're looking for growth or other areas that pop up as areas of need at the elementary. Do you have any questions on the elementary screener? Or YOLO did a survey, and theirs is a little bit different. It didn't quite fit into graphs because kids could pick more than one answer. So if you're looking at YOLO, we picked some of what we thought were the best indicators for the site. So do they know who they can go to for help with any kind of school related issue? And they have some good results there. The kids overwhelmingly feel like they have someone they can talk to. What emotions best describe themselves? How do they feel? Most of the kids were okay or happy. I would want to, I think as a administrator, they are probably looking at that boredom. What does that mean? Because that, disengagement leads to low academics. So we want to know why, a third of our kids, almost a third of the kids at YOLO are saying they're bored. What does that look like? And what does that mean? I talked with the learning director from the high school, and one of the things the high school's doing, and I'm assuming the junior high might be following that lead, is focus groups with the kids to actually find out, why are you bored? What's going on? And then what do they need most help with? So you can see those percentages also. So a lot of them are feeling, I'm thinking pressure about their grades in school in general. This was at YOLO. So the next steps for YOLO is they're going to review the data, look at small presentations and small groups, looking at individual check-ins, using morning announcements to support students, and working with their campus supervisors to kind of support some of this. And they'll give a survey in April, but they're also using their referral process to look at data over time. Like, what are the referrals like that are coming in on a regular basis? Or STEMBA gave a Google survey. And so we have some data. How would you rate your social emotional health at this time? It's pretty well divided into feeling good or not feeling good. The feeling neutral, I would kind of want to know a little bit more about that. And I think they're going to do some focus groups on what does that mean when you're saying feeling neutral? One of the things we discussed is, do they all understand what we meant by social emotional health? So that would be a good question at a focus group. They feel safe at school for the most part. And the last one, a trusted adult, which I think is important on any campus. So we might want to just explore a little bit. If about a third of the kids don't feel like they have a trusted adult, so how could we rectify that situation? What does that look like as far as making a plan at the high school to ensure that all students feel they could have a trusted adult to talk to?
Mrs. Betancourt and students, it is important, and I, as an adult, I hate when I have to do surveys, but it's a necessary evil. I know it might take a little bit of time, but it will not only help you, it will help us. We can't do something if we don't have an idea. So if there are 332 students, I don't know how many people took the survey, I know there are more than 332 students in Norriston, but that's a small sampling.
They actually increased their sample size as the week went on.
Oh,
With this,
good.
we had to have board backup into you, but they were continuing to take the survey. When I talked to Mr. Pruitt, though, the percentages stayed very similar. So this is an indicator of the overall, I think they got up to almost 600 or 700 kids taking.
Oh,
the survey.
that's, yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, keep doing that, even after you get out of school, because it helps.
I was able to meet with one of the learning directors and we had kind of a really good meeting about what the next steps are. And they're going to do student focus groups on the 18th to discuss the data and the results and find out, what the students are seeing and what they think they need. High school students, any student can tell you what they think, first grader can express their feelings. So I think it's really important that we get student input. Presenting data to the teachers. So the teachers need to see this data. And then they will survey students 2 more times this year and then compare the results. And it'll be an ongoing planning tool for supporting students. If we have the personnel, we have to use them effectively and we have to target we have to know what we need to work on. So this is helping with our mental health clinicians and counselors at the sites to make sure they're actually meeting the needs of the students based on the data.
And I believe that, COVID funding helped do this, and COVID certainly highlighted the need for mental health with students, but it didn't create it. This was going on in silence for a decade prior. And it's nice to be sitting at a board meeting talking about student social emotional health and bringing it to the forefront of what we do. Because I think for too long, and I've seen some pretty dark stories because of it, but for too long, there wasn't the funding. I just sat in on a panel countywide for Blue Cross put it on about student mental health wellness. And one of the things across the panel discussion they said was it's so nice that school districts have the counselors and the clinical technicians, the clinicians, because that means when things get referred up to the county level, you don't have to triage it anymore. You don't decide which one. They're all important at that point because you've had trained professionals at the district level say, okay, I've done my 8 weeks that I'm allowed to do of one-on-one counseling. I now need to refer it to somebody with a higher degree or higher credential than I have. Then they don't have to say, well, is this one that goes to a mental clinician? Is this one that goes to a psychologist? That's done for them, and they can get right and continue helping the students. So I applaud the board for having the foresight to put these in place and to give plenty of help to the sites. They're not sitting around doing nothing, unfortunately, but they're getting into classrooms, teaching lessons, building plans, and I really am looking forward to the next 2 data reports on this. I think we'll see some improvement.
I want to just make a couple more comments. Casey Clifton designed this. She's one of our district behaviorists. She designed the elementary survey. She brought it from another district. It's something that's used universally to measure social emotional health. She put that all together and supported, and she's supporting the sites with that. We also have school psychologists who also support students. They don't just test kids for special education. They're also providing services to kids in special education for mental health. So we have a really good support staff for our students. So I just wanted to make sure that and Martha Brown, also a behaviorist, those are all important people. They're not necessarily, they're behind the scenes people, but they're really important behind the scenes people.
Our board has kind of expressed that we have concern for you. And I want you to see that, the students who are out here today, that we are concerned. And that's why we've requested some of these things. In fact, this summer, the first thing I did when Mr. Posey was coming on was shoot off an article that I had read. And I was really concerned. And so I wanted to make certain everyone was okay. And I want to make certain you're okay academically and that you're okay socially and emotionally, because you have to have that well-rounded, because you're going to go on to be an adult and it's not easy. It's not easy being a kid, but it's not easy being an adult either when all the responsibilities come at you. So we just want to make certain that you're taken care of. Okay. So work with us. And thank you for the people who are doing all the work to do those tests and analyze and everything else.
Thank you, Mrs. Bettencourt. Board has some readings to do. We have first readings and it's in our packet. And the board governance calendar, if you look, we had it included in our packet.
So yeah, included in your, the board packet is a action calendar for this year, but it'll be a living document. I was hoping to have a discussion about anything you'd like to see added to it in a particular month. The idea is as we do reports at an agenda, cabinet will decide, is that something that should be every October or every November or whatever that looks like? And if so, then we add it to this calendar and it kind of helps us when we build the agenda, go, okay, what we do last September, because sometimes I forget what I had in the morning for breakfast, much less what I did a year ago. I did already add data talks to the top bullet, which is standing items on every agenda. Until you tell me to stop, I enjoy doing these little presentations and making Mrs. Bettencourt work really hard to put them together. But I think it's important that we keep track of our goals throughout the year and we keep seeing, how we're doing. And then if you just want to look through this, anything you see that might need to be added to a particular month, that's what this time is for, to have that discussion. And again, it's meant to be a living document, not a canonized document where we say this is the way it is, but something we could amend as it happens. It'll be coming back to you next month for approval as an action item.
And I was glad to see you mention the data talks, because I do think that'll be something that'll develop. I could see some aspect of some repeating data that we look at all the time routinely. It doesn't take a long time but just like you look down at the oil pressure and the fuel level in your car, you don't worry about them unless they're not right. And then there'll be stuff that we do on an ongoing. So student achievement was one that I had. Coordination with the city, the 2+2, we'd had some conversations with the city about a joint meeting in the future. I think that that was something that I thought could be added to this. And then this is super simple, but I think the review of norms we normally do in the organizational meeting, unless I'm confused.
Yeah, we do. It's good to have something like this and refer back. And if you think of something before the end of the month, for the next month to bring it up. Because we've never had a roadmap to help us do that. So thank you, Mr. Posey. Oh, okay. This out. Okay, action items, consent calendar. The consent calendar items are routine in nature and usually do not require board discussion. Individual items may be removed by board members and presented for discussion and separate action. The consent calendar will be adopted by a roll call vote. Okay.
I would move approval of the consent calendar.
May I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst?
Aye.
Mr. Snodely?
Aye.
Mr. Bazar?
Aye.
And Mrs. Conforti votes aye. It's passed 5-0. Approve resolution number 21-22/05, authorizing the issuance and sale 2022 general obligation bond anticipation notes in the maximum principal amount of $14,900,000.
And Madam President, Dale Scott is with us tonight. If there's any future or any questions you may have regarding this particular action item, he'd be happy to answer.
Are there any questions about it? I think we went over it quite a bit last week.
No.
I actually have
Mr. Wallace?
some discussion about it. I am super uncomfortable with this. We are borrowing $15 million based on assuming we'll be able to sell $15 million worth of bonds in somewhere between 3 to 5 years. If we don't guess the bond market right, and we're going to pay $500,000 in interest to do this. If we don't guess the bond market right, we can take out a certificate of participation to cover the difference. Now, I think We. Yeah. So I'm very concerned that come 3 to 5 years from now, facing unprecedented inflation, facing who knows what in the real estate market, facing who knows what in that we're going to have a choice of either selling bonds at high interest rates and going to our taxpayers and saying, well, we promised where we were going to be, but now we've got to sell bonds for more money and your taxes are going to go up. Or we have to take on a COP to cover the difference between what we can buy bonds for in 3 years and what we are, selling chickens that we haven't hatched yet. I also have real concerns about jumping ahead with borrowing $15 million that will be spent on the swimming pool and on the Von Renner cafeteria. And I don't feel like we've done a complete job of looking at our facilities needs. And I'm very concerned that Diablo's looking at some building, I think. We could all of a sudden have another 100 kids at Bonita, and Bonita will turn into the same portable zoo that we've got here at Von Renner that we'd like to clean up. I also think that by spending this money now, we lose the ability to, if we, for example, would like to do a STEM campus someplace and we turn around and go, gosh, we need some facilities to have a STEM or a performing arts or some kind of a magnet school. Well, we will have already spent this money. I think that we can borrow this money. And then I'm also very concerned that this is going to be our last bond sale for like 10 years. So we're predicting all of the classrooms we're going to need. We're predicting all of our facilities needs. We're borrowing the money now, hoping that the bond market is good. And kind of at the end of this, I come back that the lesson of 2008 is if you don't understand what you're doing, don't do it. And I think that that's the lesson for groups like us. I don't understand why we know that we can pay back $15.5 million with the $500,000 in interest in 2 years when the economy is so murky. And then I'm really concerned that we are making this facilities promise that we're going to spend our facilities money on Von Renner cafeteria, which the Von Renner cafeteria is below the standards that I set. I think it's below all of our standards, but we've lived with that cafeteria since we had 900 and something students, I think, at one time at this campus. So we have lived with that multi-purpose room. Yes, I'd like to replace it. But should Von Renner be one campus? Should it be 2 schools on one campus? Is that the right? We looked at our data returns tonight, and I don't feel like we're giving, when I'm seeing 3rd grade reading level and 11th graders, I'm thinking, gosh, we really shortchanged these kids. And I think that facilities could be part of that answer. The idea of attracting kids to a magnet school, that whether it's performing arts or STEM or whatever, I hate to spend our money on this. And I just don't understand this magic little thing that lets us borrow this money and is sure that we can pay it back. This looks like what gets districts into big trouble. This looks like we could be sitting on several $1 million of shortfall in 2 or 3 years, wondering how we're going to come up with it. And the answer will be a COP. And we've had, relatively small COP with YOLO, which is great. We got the facility built, but already again this year, we don't have the money in the funds to pay this year's COP payment. We'll probably get it. We've got some development that's happening. We'll probably get some developer fees. We've been lucky so far. It hasn't hit our general fund, but it could. And an even bigger COP to cover a difference in bond sales doesn't make sense to me. So I'm opposed to this. And I don't think that this is the right way forward for us. We should sell bonds when we have them available to sell, and that there are some other financing options hopefully out there that we could look at to bridge this difference in the same way.
I was under the understanding that if we did not do this, one, Von Renner would not get done. And I'm tired of Von Renner being the orphan that gets pushed aside because we pushed them. As long as I've been on the board, it keeps saying, you know, next year. They deserve to have a really good working campus. And I was under the impression that we would not be able to do this if we didn't do it now till 2030. And we can't wait that long. We can't wait 9 more years.
Do you want to make that reference, Sean?
May I?
Oh, wait,
Lieutenant
yeah,
Posey?
let me,
Well, from my point of view, I don't see it as risky as Mr. Wallace's point of view. But I also think that we said to the community, we're going to do something. Vote for this bond measure and we will build something. I mean, in my mind, a big portion of that is the pool, but it's not the only thing. And to say, no, we're going to wait now. We'll wait 4 or 5, who knows how many years, and see what the market will bear at that point seems like we would be misrepresenting what we said we were going to do. I want to start building the pool. I want to start improving the Von Renner campus, not start renting, but go ahead and improve it. And I think that now's the time to do it. Is there some risk? I guess there's some risk. Really what we're doing is we said to the community, we're not going to raise your property tax. We could do it and raise their property tax, I believe. And then we'd be lying to them in that regard. But what we're saying to them, we're going to borrow this money in this manner so that we don't immediately raise your property tax. Again, I'm one taxpayer in this community. Even if we raise the taxes on everybody's home, it wouldn't be all that much, in my opinion. But we said we wouldn't do it, so we shouldn't do it. I think this is it's not a risk-free method of doing it, but it's a relatively prudent method of doing it. Is it possible that the economy will go into the toilet and all appraised values in Stanislaus County or in the Newman area would go tremendously down? It's possible. It's happened before, but it's not very likely. And again, it seems to me we promised we were going to build something we should build. We're not taking on that much debt to finance this particular arrangement. $500,000 sounds like a lot of money, but it is a lot of money, but it isn't a lot of money for a school district and a school district our size. It really isn't. And it just seems to me that we said we were going to do it. We should do it. It's to hold on to the money in the hope that we might someday need to start a magnet school or to build another campus somewhere because we have a sudden influx of kids. If we have a sudden influx of kids, it means we've got a sudden influx of houses too. And with the houses, we can require essentially that the school comes too. I mean, we just don't say yes to the developer who wants to build 1,000 houses and give us no money or make no provision for a new campus. So I think that you're right. There's some risk there. It's always daunting to think in terms of these large numbers, but we're a healthy community. We've actually, I think, improved even since we heard the reports on the appraised value or assessed value. I guess it's not the appraised value, the assessed value in the community. The numbers continue to go up. Maybe they've reached their peak. I don't know, but they have gone up considerably in the last couple of years. And we went to the voters. We said we were going to build this, and we said we were going to do it in this manner. And so I think we should go ahead and do it. But anyway, my vote's going to be to approve the resolution, but I'm certainly willing to listen to other discussion.
To address President Conforti's question.
Mr. Gallo, thank you.
Sure. Let me say, I think board member Wallace makes a lot of good points. And I would say any financial transaction involves risk. And so what you're needing to do, and it's always difficult as a board, is you're weighing, well, what's the more appropriate risk? Which risk should we take? Because remember, if you don't issue these I like to think of them as project bonds, as sort of a bridge financing to accomplish exactly what the board member just described, to not raise taxes. If you don't raise those, if you don't issue those bonds, then the value of those bonds will go down over time by a lot more than the interest that you are going to spend, that your taxpayers are going to spend, by an enormously large amount. So the risk then becomes, well, what does happen? I mean, can it actually happen, as was described, that there would be some sort of Armageddon and terrible things would happen? It's happened. Usually there are situations that are much different than this. It's districts that have gone into debt by hundreds of millions of dollars, believing the economy will bring them out. Or they have put themselves all the way up to a tax rate limit that they simply can't get out of somehow. You're not in that place. You're starting with a blank slate. So you have all sorts of opportunities. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm saying I think it's unlikely. And so for you, I think the vote is, which risk do you want to take? Are you comfortable with a modicum of risk that there will be something that happens in the economy that makes it impossible for you to issue these bonds in 3 years ago? Or do you want to take the risk that the buying power of these is extremely lower than what you had told the voters? And I think that's really the essence of the question. But I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Dale, could you address the, if we were not to do the ban on attestation note, pull down the 7 million just for the pool, what does the future look like in pulling down the rest of the?
That's a good question. So you have $25.8 million of voter approved bonds. Under this alternative, you would issue 14.5. You pay it back in 3 years or so, and that's a very short period of time. It's when they get longer that problems begin, but you'd pay it back in 3 years. At that time, the plan is, it's up to you, but at that time, the plan is that you would raise enough to pay off that ban and raise another $10 million for additional projects. And that would take care of the $25 million. All of that is constructed around that promise that you made to the voters to not increase their taxes. And that's why we have these kind of markers. If you said, no, we don't want to do that, we only want to issue $7.5 million now. We don't want to do this bridge lending. We want to start paying them off as fast as we can and not give ourselves that runway. Then you can do that. But the prospects then really change because you have to then fill up all of that tax revenue that you were going to use for future bonds with paying off that $7 million now. So your ability to issue anything after that is going to be popped down the road. You wouldn't be able to issue under some fairly conservative assumptions. You wouldn't be able to issue that second series until a very small amount in 25, but really not get to the rest of the bonds until about 2030. And that's a long time.
Yeah.
But that's the constraint that you've given yourself by telling the voters that you're not going to raise their taxes. We have to manipulate around that constraint. And I think this is the best way to do it.
Do I understand what you're saying properly? That if we do this ban, we can sell $25 million worth of bonds in 3 years. But if we sell $7 million worth of bonds, we won't be able to borrow any more money for 10 years.
You would be able to sell the $7.5 million. You would be able to issue another $7.5 million or so in 3 years, but then you wouldn't be able to get to the rest of those funds until 2030. Now that's assuming assessed valuation grows at a fairly modest rate, 3.5%. If it goes faster than that, then life's grand and you can do anything you want. But our role is to put this down to what we think is a fairly conservative expectation.
My question is for the person who kept us solvent for so long, could you please let us know how you feel about this?
Well, I agree with Mr. Bazar that the board put out the bond for an election last year and the community supported it, and they supported it at the fact where we are going to do a tax extension, not a tax increase. And I think we put together a perspective that we can move forward with some projects fairly quickly. When I first took over my position, a bond had passed in 2006, I think, and nothing happened for a long time. I mean, YOLO was built in 2000 with that bond, then there was another one passed, and it just, things kind of sat, and the community really got sour about that. Then things started to move, and then we kind of got that back, and that's why we've been able to pass the initiatives that we've put forth. So I really think that we need to build on the momentum that we have with the quick turnaround. People have been, I know the pool is a hot project because people have been waiting 15 years since the plunge left. But there are other issues. There are other projects that were outlined in the bond language, and we need to get moving on those. And I believe I asked all these questions when we first started talking about it. My gut instinct was, I lived through 2008 in my neighborhood and I saw how awful it was. And we talked about the factors that led up to that. Those factors are no longer factors. So yes, there may be right now we're looking at incredibly high assessed valuation growth. Things will taper off. Things will normalize a little bit because the market has a natural correction. But will we see a crash like we saw? There are not the same economic factors that there were in 2008.
Yeah, I would
Feel
agree
free
with
to
that.
add to that.
I would agree with that.
We can't do a bake sale.
No, we can't.
We can't do this. We're debating this to death. The vote, we've asked the public, and we can't keep kicking the can down the road. We promised the people a pool and a cafeteria. Let's do the vote.
One other thing I'd like to add is and Dale Scott mentioned it. Mr. Posey and I have had lots of conversations about it. Construction costs are not going down. By the time, if we wait and we issue bonds later, construction costs will go up, our buying power will decrease. So looking at the inflation rate going forward, that's a concern. So I would rather move forward on things now. We look at what happened last year when we went out to bid for the tennis courts. We still have the option to not accept a bid if it's not within our parameters, but we have to have some funding to at least go to that point.
Mr. Scott, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to bring this to a vote. Approve resolution number 21-22/05, authorizing the issuance and sale of 2022 general obligation bond anticipation notes in the maximum principal amount of $14,900,000. May I have a motion?
So moved.
May I have a second? Okay, Mr. Wallace?
Nay.
Mrs. Hurst?
Yes.
Mr. Snodderly?
Yes.
Mr. Bazar?
Yeah.
Mrs. Conforti votes aye. It passes 4-1. Okay. Approval of the annual and 5-year developer fee report for the year 2020 to 2021. Mrs. Mendoza.
Yes, and also in your packet tonight, a report that we have to file annually. And so it takes a look at developer fees that we, over the past 5 years and where we are. And we do use our developer fees to primarily pay down our COP debt. So the last couple of years, you can see we had 15,000 in 1920 and 14,000 last year, when there's not a lot of construction. If that turns around, then we'll have more to report. But over the last 5 years, we've had about $2.2 million in developer fees. But as you can see, the ending balance is dwindling to about $388,000. It also, there's also a statute that we have to list the projects that we want to do, that there is a much higher need for facilities than we're able to generate in developer fees. So that's what this report outlines.
Thank you. Are there any questions from board members? No, okay. May I have a motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Mr. Wallace?
Aye.
Mrs. Hurst?
Aye.
Mr. Snodderly?
Aye.
Mr. Bizarre?
Aye.
Mrs. Conforti votes aye. It passes 5-0. Future agenda items, first interim organizational meeting, because that's where we do president, and approval of educator effectiveness block grant expenditure plan. Mr. Posey.
Madam President, it is a pleasure to announce that this will be my last transportation update. All routes will be functioning normally on Wednesday. I would like to thank from the bottom of my heart the public for their patience during this time. I'd like to thank Time for changing this weekend and making it lighter for the kids this morning. And really a big thank you to First Student. They just were a partnership through this the whole time. With the weekly updates, and they're still not fully staffed. They're still about 75% staffed, but they got us back to whole. So we'll run 6 routes beginning Wednesday. That notification went out already. So very excited to report that. Also excited to report the Pennies for Polio, something that Rotary, our local Rotary Club does, and Interact at the high school did this. We're still counting. If anybody want to know where the national coin shortage is, it's in the district office with our Pennies for Polio. Rotary over the years have been instrumental in eradicating polio from this earth. And we like to say in Rotary, we're this close to getting the job done. And this goes to getting vaccinations where they're most needed. We will be in excess of $1,700 in coins raised in the district. Still counting. I'm still counting. Yeah, did attend a training for the program formerly known as After School Program. We now refer to it as Beyond the Bell. So that's the name they selected on Saturday because it's not just after school. We have a before school program as well going live and strong. So they wanted to make it Beyond the Bell. And it was a great training. Got to come out and talk to some people and well attended. About 90% of our Beyond the Bell staff was at the training. We do have a theater action going on Friday. Is it YOLO? At YOLO. Yeah, that's one thing I didn't write down is where. Doors will open at 6:30, curtain at 7. It's a $10 fee. It is indoors because the weather's starting to change on us. So mask will be required and it is no pre-sale, first come, first serve. So encourage. I'm going to get there and kind of do my old camp out thing, get a ticket. Did Future Chef competition. Thank you, Ms. Mendoza, for putting that together. That was remarkable. Got to see young chefs get a basket of stuff, all the chop style, if I can steal that trademark from Food Network for a second. And they created their own meal. If I could have taken a picture of the smells that were coming out of the kitchen, I would have, because they were absolutely amazing. Alexa mentioned it, but if you get a chance to walk along the high school sometime, the NAMI, the mental health chalk art is just phenomenal and uplifting. And, you know, I generally don't walk with my head down, but when I'm walking around and I see you matter and stay with it, you're doing a good job. And I'm like, chalk's making me feel like a better person. I like this. So good job, NAMI. I appreciate you doing that. The pool committee meets tomorrow, Bizarre and Snarly. And 2+2 a week after. I do want to thank the students for being here tonight. It was a longer meeting than usual, so I appreciate your patience and staying with us. We do this for you, and we're all lucky to have a board that represents you. My last thing is to remind everybody there's no school on Thursday. However, it's with purpose. The history teacher comes out. I mean, it's Veterans Day. It's the anniversary of the end of World War I. And it's a great time to thank anyone who has served. And I will say thank you. For anyone who has served, I always made it a custom. I have some friends who are vets and we always go out to breakfast, my treat with them, because it's important. I'll leave you with this thought and I'll turn the mic off, is when you consider everybody who has served, who don't know you, to protect yours, to sacrifice theirs, you learn that freedom isn't free. And they pay the price, and we must appreciate that. So think about that on Thursday when we're not at school.
Thank you, Mr. Posey. Mr. Bazar?
I don't have much. I was just would say to the students and the high school and that, you know, reading about your triumphs on the football field and in other athletic endeavors, you make the community proud. We're proud of you anyway. I mean, even if you lost, you're still decent human beings, but you didn't. And so that's a nice thing. I understand. And I don't know, Alexa, did you mention, I know you mentioned the floats. Did you mention that the senior float won?
Yeah.
Because,
no, I did not.
oh,
Senior
okay.
float-
All right. That's what I was told.
Oh, no. Oh.
It
Anyway.
went Seniors, freshmen, juniors, and sophomores.
Okay, good. All right, that's all I have.
Mrs. Hurst?
Okay, first of all, I get to sit with the fire engine at those games. We had a good time. Let's just put it that way. Okay. And my brother's a coach for a high school up in the foothills. So I got to rub this one in his face. And so this was very special, and I'm so proud of the students for this. Cheerleaders, everyone, it was out in the stands. And that poor youngster that dropped that bag of, what's that stuff? The purple stuff? Yeah, and it came up and everybody started apologizing to me, and I'm going, don't worry about it. Everything's okay tonight. It's all good. So it was really great. Thank you.
Mr. Snodderly?
I have, I should rephrase that. I better not say anything else. I have the, good job, everyone.
Mr. Wallace?
I always have a list. We did an expulsion tonight, and these are one of the few times that we ever actually see student records. But I looked at this student record and I thought about how we really need to have an alt ed program. It didn't seem like this student was reaching what they needed in our district, and it just brought back to me this board's been supportive of alt ed for a long time, and I hope that we look at that, you know, as we work through the future. Mental health, not just my work here on this school board, but also the work that I do with the Association of Stanislaus County and what I do with CSBA. I had a meeting where a CSBA lobbyist was basically, we need to go down to those county mental health and we need to make them give us a bunch of money because it's ours. And yes, they do have money that is supposed to go to our students. I drive through downtown Modesto and I think behavioral health has their hands full and they've got some work to do. We don't need. So anyway, I've got a meeting set up through our county supervisor to meet our county behavioral health director and hopefully start some kind of dialogue where at least schools and behavior health can have some kind of dialogue and not at standing there with their fingers pointing, because I've never seen a meeting like that give us any value. Finally, thank you for the students. Thank you for coming out and giving up your Monday evening. Thank you for all these tests and surveys that you've been taking, but especially thanks for coming down. Having a room full of students reminds us why we're here, and we really appreciate that.
Quickly, one, I hope you enjoyed Thursday. I have a neighbor who graduated from our STEMBA in 1969, and she said she was so amazed at how respectful all of you were at the game, not only to your classmates, but also to the retirees and the people that had come, the alumni, and that even as a winning team, you didn't taunt the losing team, but you were very proud of having the Warriors. So I appreciate everything you do. And if you ever need us, please let us know. Alexa is very good at giving us information, so please keep her posted. And thank you for everything. Okay, have a good day.